In earlier recordings, we've looked at the structure of Parliament itself. In this recording, we're going to look at how Parliament actually works. The fundamental purpose of Parliament is to create legislation. The purpose of creating legislation is to either make new laws, to amend existing laws, or to repeal or remove existing legislation. In each of these three situations, the way Parliament does that is to pass new laws. Now, ideas to change the law can come from many different places. It can come from people and citizens in the community, it can come from pressure groups, it can come from bodies specifically established to examine the law, think tanks, academic research groups and law reform committees. And a large source for ideas to change the law comes from government departments themselves. The first step, and probably the most important step in this process of creating and changing legislation, is to note that the government of the day, and in particular the cabinet, they are the ones who really determine whether any particular idea is actually worthwhile enough to be sent through to the parliamentary drafting committee. Assuming that it is, and it gets that cabinet assent behind closed door, a bill is drafted. That's essentially a draft piece of legislation. At the time, certain notes and memorandum are created along with that, really explaining what the underlying purpose of the document is, and the drafting committee has to follow certain legislative standards in doing so, such as to not draft inconsistent with human rights. Now, after the bill is created, the first formal step that it takes is to have essentially a first reading in Parliament, which is largely a formality. No debate occurs at this particular point in time. After this bill has been read for a second time in the House it's been introduced to, then people in that House, the MPs in that House, be it the Senate or the House of Representatives, will vote on it. Assuming that that vote succeeds, then gets sent to parliamentary committees. These are groups made up of MPs and other people, where people can submit ideas, changes, and really make comment on particular components of a bill before it becomes law. After those changes have been done, things are sent back to the Parliament. If amendments need to be made, then that needs to be voted upon. But after the final bill is finished, then a third reading occurs and a final vote occurs in that particular House. Then, after that third reading and vote has occurred, the bill gets sent to the other House, and this entire process is repeated for a second time. When the second House agrees that this particular piece of legislation is okay, in other words, it's gone through, had three readings and voted upon it, then it can be sent to the Governor-General or Governor or Administrator for royal assent. However, if it fails to pass the other House, it can either be rejected outright and the government will take the bill away and draft it and start the entire process again, or, particularly if a bill's been created in the lower House, passed through the lower House where the government has the majority, sent to the Senate, which is the House of Review, and rejected, it can be sent again 3 months later. If it's rejected a second time, the Prime Minister can call for a double dissolution, dissolving both Houses of Parliament. If, however, the bill does get passed by both Houses, it is sent to the Governor-General or the Governor, and after either 28 days for Commonwealth legislation or the date of royal assent for most of the states, it will become law. And so hopefully that was helpful in understanding very briefly the legislative process.